This is very sweet. It's like a small home program. It's wonderful. So, despite all the school holidays, some of you decided to come. I guess you folks are not traveling. Chakshurumilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadaniyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Chuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lagayate Grim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam. Offer my respectful obeisances and to my spiritual masters, Holiness Radhan Swami, by whose mercy even the lame can cross mountains and the dumb can speak eloquently. So we'll speak about Damodar Leela, which is one of the most prominent Leelas that happened in the month of Kartik in Vrindavan. So Krishna lived in Vrindavan almost from the time of his appearance, right? He appeared in Mathura in the prison house of Kamsa, and then he asked to be taken across the river to Gokul, and he was taken to Nanda and Yashoda's house, exchanged with a baby girl that had been born there, and the baby girl went back. That was Yogamaya, and she escaped obviously Kamsa's depredations, and then Krishna started to grow up, and this Leela, this Damodar Leela, happened right around the time when he was a little toddler. So you have 3 kids, right? And you know how when they were toddlers, they were probably the most mischievous, right? They were getting into everything and breaking stuff and so on. And everything we have and we feel and we see comes from Krishna, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if our kids can be naughty, you can imagine how naughty Krishna was when he was displaying his childhood pastimes as a 2-year-old. And this Damodar Leela is celebrated not just for what Krishna displayed that day, but for what his mother displayed that day and the relationship between the two of them. So it's a very, it's a Leela that we hear, if we've been in devotional service. I've been hearing this for now almost 3 decades, and it never gets old. We hear it so many times because topics about Krishna don't get stale. Topics about mundane matters get very stale. If you try discussing the 2023 Super Bowl game more than 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times, you'll get bored out of your mind, or any other mundane topic for that matter, right? So in this, you can see the paintings shows that while Balaram is distracting Mother Yashoda, Krishna is stealing butter. So this is a very common pastime that we see in Vrindavan during Krishna's childhood years. So let's first do the backstory to Damodar Leela. So before the famous Damodar Leela happened, there is a backstory to that, right? And you can see the butter thief strikes again, right? Krishna is stealing the pot of butter and he's caught, right? So, Krishna charms the Brajabasis by doing mischief. In the Bhagavatam 10.8.29, it's described the Vraja gopis, the gopis in Vrindavan, complained to Mother Yashoda about the mischievous activities of her son. Our dear friend Yashoda, your son sometimes comes to our houses before the cows are milked and releases the calves. Now the calves are supposed to be released only when the cows are about to be milked. Otherwise what happens? They go and drink all the milk and then there is nothing left, right? And when the master of the house becomes angry, your son merely smiles, right? So you can see in the picture gopis complaining to Mother Yashoda about Krishna. Sometimes, this is the gopis continuing, he devises some process by which he steals palatable yogurt, butter and milk, which he then eats and drinks. When the monkeys assembles, he divides it with them. And when the monkeys have their bellies so full that they won't take any more, he breaks the parts. Sometimes if he gets no opportunity to steal butter or milk from a house, he'll be angry at the householders. And for his revenge, he will agitate the small children by pinching them. Then when the children begin crying, Krishna will run away. Right? So the gopis are complaining like this. And this is one verse that talks about it. But this was going on ever since Krishna and Balaram started crawling around. And so by this time, a year had gone by when they had started to crawl and walk. And the complaints had reached a crescendo. So Mother Yashoda was hearing about this every day. And, we'll talk about a few instances on this page. How the grand master of all thieves, it is described. That's Krishna, right? He steals not only butter but also the hearts and minds of the residents of Vrindavan, right? So, in the first story, few butter stealing escapades we'll talk about. Krishna goes to the house of a gopi. And so let me backtrack. After that series of complaints which we heard about before, the gopis all get together and they say, this Krishna, he's very naughty and he's very smart. So he always outwits us. Something or the other happens and we cannot either catch him red-handed, or if we catch him red-handed, he escapes. Or if we even catch him and we hold on to him and then we take him in front of Mother Yashoda, our complaint is still ineffective because nothing seems to work. Yashoda believes only her son, Krishna. And so they all get together and they say, listen, we all are stronger united than one by one. Isn't that true? Right? They talk about like these thin little sticks. If you individual stick, you can break like that. But if you bundle them together and then try to break those sticks, it's impossible to break those. Right? So the gopis say, let's all stick together when we catch Krishna stealing butter, and then we will together catch him, and then together make sure that Mother Yashoda sees what her son is doing, and then she will believe us. Right? So this is the background. So Krishna goes, he's plotting with his friends, and he's like, listen, they all are like plotting to catch me. Right? We have to make sure if they catch me, you all escape. I'll figure out a way because I'm like, I can escape. And you all might get stuck and get caught. So they get together and then they go, on their escapade. And then the first gopi that they get to, Krishna started to steal the butter and the yogurt and everything. And suddenly the gopi comes right upon Krishna and catches him red-handed. And by Krishna's internal potency, because Krishna is in the heart of the gopi also, right? she suddenly gets confused when she forgets what she had discussed with the other gopis. So she totally gets confused and bewildered and oh, what are you doing? And Krishna says, no, I just came to visit and I'm very hungry, so do you think you can give me some milk products? And she said, sure. And she gets very charmed by him and she suddenly gives him all the products. He and his friends eat and then they leave. And as soon as they leave, memory floods back and she's like, I was supposed to have caught all the gopis so that we could catch this rascal boy red-handed. Now he's escaped. Okay, next time we'll do this. Right? So that's one escapade. Then they go to the next house and the gopi there is standing and she's charmed by Krishna's words because Krishna, besides being naughty, is also the most charming personality. Yeah, so when it doesn't matter what your resolution is, when Krishna wants something, he can charm your heart. So she is totally charmed, and even though he's stealing, she just stands by and she's laughing and totally overcome by love for this little boy who's stealing, and she lets him be. Then at the third gopi's house, he goes and says, our household has run out of milk and milk products. And we have a very special sage who's come to our house, along with his multiple disciples. So we need all the milk products that we can get from the village. So we've come to collect door to door. So she said, sure. So she gives all the boys and Krishna these milk products. They carry it out of her house and they sit right on the steps of that house. They don't even bother to go far away. And they eat all of this butter and stuff. And then the monkeys are always around Krishna's friends and then they feed it to the monkeys. So the gopi comes out and says, hi, what are you doing? I thought you had a sage who had come to your house and you were taking it for your sage, this special guest. And Krishna says, I am the sage. And he's speaking the truth because all wisdom comes from Krishna. So I am the sage and these are all my disciples, these coward boys. So this butter that you gave me, you've done the right thing and you learn so much merit, spiritual merit by feeding us all milk and butter and everything. Right? So she goes, my God, this young boy, again, there goes our resolve. We are all resolved that we would catch him. But, he's taking it from right under our noses. And then they all enter an empty house. And then he's caught. Because the gopi had just stepped out for something. And then when she came back in, here is the boy stealing the butter. And she catches him. And she this time calls out to all the gopis. That gopi remembers that she's supposed to call her. She calls to all the gopis and they all come and they're like, okay, we caught you, you rascal, and now we're going to hand you over to Mother Yashoda and she's going to see you are not lying, you are the one who's lying, right? And so Krishna, one of the gopis is wearing a nice beautiful pearl necklace. So Krishna just tugs on that pearl necklace. And it's a valuable pearl necklace. So all the pearls go scattered and flying on the floor. And the gopi suddenly is on all fours. She's trying to pick up these pearls. And all the other gopis are trying to help her. And out goes our naughty Krishna out of the door. Right? So these pastimes happen again and again. And Krishna he's entered the minds and the hearts of the Vrindavan Vasis. And it seems like they're complaining, but in reality, they're actually, when you fall in love with someone, you actually want to talk about them all the time. So the Brajavasis are actually in that situation. They cannot stop talking about Krishna. Even when he's not there, they're talking about Krishna amongst themselves. And these butter stealing pastimes are just an excuse for them to talk about Krishna and to go to Yashoda. For example, Yashoda says, if it's such a problem, I will stop Krishna and Balaram from coming to your house. From henceforth, I will make sure they're imprisoned in my house and they don't go anywhere. And immediately the gopis panic. And they say, no, we didn't, it's not that bad. It's okay, they can come. We didn't mean for him to be like imprisoned in your house, right? So please send him. So the gopis actually, they're complaining simply so they can talk about the object of their love. But Yashoda Mai has had enough. She goes, this boy is just causing so much havoc in the village, right? And they're all complaining, and it's true. She talks with Nanda Maharaj, And she goes, we must not be feeding him very nice milk products. Why else is he going and stealing from other people's, milk products? So Nanda Maharaj has 900,000 cows, right? That's 9 lakh cows. 900,000 is a lot of cows, right? And among them, there's a very small number of very heavenly cows called Padma Gandha. Padma means lotus, Gandha means fragrance. The milk that is given by Padma Gandha cows is so fragrant, it's like a lotus, it smells like a lotus. The taste is divine and it's completely nourishing. So Yashoda Mai says, henceforth I'm going to give Krishna only butter and ghee and yogurt and milk that comes from these Padma Gandha cows, right? So she has Nanda Maharaj set aside fields specially to grow the most fragrant grasses, because whatever cows eat, that's what the milk smells like, right? The most fragrant grasses. And then she personally, even though Nanda and Yashoda are the king and queen of Gokul, she doesn't rely on her servants, because seva means we take up seva to the Supreme Lord. It's not like we delegate, okay, Subal Pran, you do this, let me just sit back and, enjoy myself, right? So Yashoda Mai, she personally cultivates these fields, and it's very hard work. Anyone here done farming or gardening before? I know Radhika has, right? It's extremely hard work. It's not something easy. It's easy to type on a computer and, and stuff, but not easy to toil under the sun and cultivate these grasses. So she does that over a period of months, and all these beautiful grasses, fragrant grasses grow, and only the Padma Gandha cows are allowed to graze in those fields. And then their milk she takes out and she's feeding that to Krishna. So right, these are all the backstories to how Damodar Leela happened. Yeah, so far so good? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's what she resolved to do. So you can see this cow is also very special, right? Special Padma Gandha cows. And look at Krishna hugging Mother Yashoda from behind. So charming. So, now we come to Damodar Leela. And this is the Leela that many of us have heard again and again. Krishna is tied to the ulu khala, or the mortar, grinding mortar that's behind him. And you can see it's bigger than he is. Yeah. He's a little toddler, and it's a solid wood, like even adults couldn't lift it, right? It's a very heavy mortar. So the day of Damodar Leela dawns. Anyone here know, and it's not a test, just trying to make it, a two-way conversation. Anyone here know which day in Kartik Damodar Leela happened? It happened on the day of Diwali. Oh. So Diwali is special for two reasons. More commonly known is Lord Ram returned to Ayodhya, and all the lamps were lit up, for Lord Ramchandra's victorious arrival, right, back in Ayodhya. But Damodar Leela happened on Diwali day, right? So it's a very special day. So this time when we have Diwali, right, we can remember this Damodar Leela and maybe even read about it. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, 9th and 10th chapter refer to Damodar Leela. Okay, so you can read those chapters that day. So the day of Damodar Leela dawned with Mother Yashoda getting up early, very early, Mangalarti, as usual, to serve her darling son, Krishna. So she's churning butter, right? And Krishna wakes up and starts crying because he doesn't see his mother next to her, right? And little toddlers, when they wake up, they don't see their mother or father. They are like, oh, what happened? Why is my mom not here to take care of me, right? So he comes out. And he comes out of his bedroom, and she's churning. And you see, this is the hand churn, and this is very hard work, churning butter, right? So she's churning, and she's laboring. She's got flowers in her hair, and it's described her sari is like falling off to one side and she's perspiring because she's doing with so much affection and effort for her son. Remember, this is the Padma Gandha milk that she's churning into buttermilk and then butter from that milk, right? But Krishna comes, he puts a hand on on that churning rod, which you see there, the vertical churning rod. And he stops her and he says, Mom, stop. Like he wants attention, like any toddler. And then he climbs into her lap and he starts to suck her breast. Because he doesn't want, any other milk. He wants Yashoda Mai's special breast milk. Because it's very full of affection and love, which Mother Yashoda is described in Bhagavatam as the foremost in parental affection to Krishna. Yashoda and a little bit behind, almost on the same level, Nanda Maharaj. But Yashoda is the epitome of parental affection towards Krishna. So he's sucking her breast milk, and suddenly she has something in the kitchen. It's also meant for Krishna, it's not something selfish for herself. The Padmagandha milk is on a wooden, on some wood. Maybe give her this water. Shantanu. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the Padmagandha milk is in a pot, and she hears, if you ever boil milk, it makes a certain sound when it starts to overflow. And milk, unfortunately, never just stays inside the pot. It always comes out, right? And there's a special sound like zzz. And Mother Yashoda, she's got Krishna on her breast, and she's feeding him, and suddenly she hears this milk is about to boil. Now, she's been cultivating this for months, and these are special cows. There's only a handful of cows, and this milk is only meant for Krishna's pleasure. And she's like, I gotta save that milk. Now, the Acharyas explained that in the spiritual world, everything is conscious. So there's nothing like here, it's dead matter, right? This microphone is dead matter, this mouse is dead matter, right? It doesn't have a life of its own, it doesn't have consciousness, right? Unless we do something with it, it's not going to move. But in the spiritual world, even the stones have consciousness. They are thinking like, oh, today Krishna and Balaram will come and they will stand on us and they will play the flute, and Krishna, will justify or sanctify our existence by standing on us. They're thinking like this. And so the milk, the Padmagandha milk, is thinking, Are, Krishna is sucking the breast of Mother Yashoda? What chance do I have versus her breast milk? What affection do we have for Krishna compared to her, right? Better we just give up our life and jump into the fire and commit suicide. And so the milk decides to jump out of the pot and jump into the fire. That's the spiritual reason behind why the milk comes out. The material reason is the heat is grown and the milk has boiled, and therefore it's coming out. So this is the background. And Krishna wants her breast milk, but suddenly that Padmagandha milk is boiling over. You can see them and it makes a mess, right? What does Mother Yashoda do? She suddenly, it's reaction, it's reflex. She puts Krishna down and she runs to save this milk, right? Now, as a mother, if you put a child down who's feeding, is the child happy? The child is very cranky, isn't it? When you put them down and they're in the middle of feeding and they haven't finished feeding and Krishna's not finished yet. He wants to just feel Mother Yashoda's love. And so, as soon as she puts him down, he gets very upset. And he gets up, and that pot of butter, with the churn that we saw earlier, he gets up and he smashes that pot, right? He's angry with Mother Yashoda, and all the butter comes out. And then he runs, it's described, his little feet, he steps in that butter, and then his feet make these butter marks as he runs around the house. And then he goes to the storehouse where the butter is stored, right? Because they produce a lot, 900,000 cows produce a lot of milk products. So all the milk products are stored there. So he's running there, and Yashoda Mai comes back having saved the milk, and she goes, "Where's my boy?" And she sees buttery footmarks all across the floor. And now imagine, right? We all clean houses and stuff. Imagine if we had to continually clean butter footmarks and butter marks all over our walls, which is what Krishna would do, right? And it was a lot of hard work and anxiety for the parents, but it was an anxiety of love. It wasn't like, it didn't cause frustration, it caused extra love. in their hearts, because Krishna was flooding their hearts with joy and happiness when they were reciprocating with him, right? So she sees that he's gone. Now what is our Krishna up to? So he goes to the room where yesterday's butter was stored. Now someone remind me, if I don't get to it, why it was yesterday's butter, okay, not today's butter, okay? So there's a significance. Acharyas tell us about that also. So he goes to the room where yesterday's butter was stored. He climbs onto the ulukhala, which is the grinding mortar, right? That tall mortar that was behind him, right, in that picture. He breaks the pots that are hanging from the ceiling. And as the butter and the yogurt is dripping out, he starts to eat it. He calls his friends, they're all there, come, come, come. He feeds them. And the monkeys are also hanging around. If you've been to Vrindavan or you've read about Vrindavan, there's monkeys everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so the monkeys are there, and Krishna is like, here, eat some butter, eat some, yogurt and so on, right? Eat some, ghee and drink some milk. And finally, even the monkeys have had enough, like everyone's had enough. But it's described, and when we chant Damodarashtakam, we will hear it. It's described that Krishna is standing on the mortar, but he knows he's doing something naughty. And therefore, he's looking here and there. You know, when you're doing something wrong, you're not peacefully doing it. Right? You're always like, he's like checking it. Where's Mother Yashoda? Right? And as soon as he sees Mother Yashoda come, he starts to run from there, right? And you see this, he's feeding the monkeys. Now the Acharyas tell us that these monkeys were, when Krishna appeared millions of years ago as Lord Ram, he was helped by the monkeys, right, in his fight against Ravana. And at that time, besides giving them some fruits and whatever, he couldn't really reciprocate with them. And so when he came as Krishna, he reciprocated with the monkeys by personally feeding them butter, right? So we talked about yesterday's butter.
Yeah.
Why not today's butter? Anyone know or want to hazard a theory?
Different cows?
Okay, that's one theory. Anyone?
It ages.
Does it take a day to separate?
Sorry?
Does it take a day to separate in the milk so you can skim it off the top?
Or the cream.
That's a good potential theory, but that's not why Krishna went to the room where yesterday's butter was stored. Anyone? Radhika, you want to hazard a guess? No? So the Acharyas describe Krishna is very upset. Remember? The headline of this page is Krishna is upset with Mother Yashoda. And he wants her to pay. Okay? So he's like, if I eat today's butter, she'll be angry, but it's not really payback. If I eat yesterday's butter, there's a chance I'll fall sick. And then she'll have to stay with me up all night, tend to me, feed me medicine, take care of me, put cooling compressors on my head, because I'll be sick from eating yesterday's butter. Right? I didn't have refrigeration. So this was Krishna's mindset, that I will make her pay for dropping me when she was feeding me her breast milk and going to save the milk that was on the stove, right? So that's why he eats that yesterday's butter, okay?
And they hang on to it because they're on a D.
Yeah. So Yashoda comes across Krishna, because remember, he's left a trail of buttery footprints all over the house. So she comes straight to the storeroom where he is, and she catches him red-handed feeding the butter to the monkeys. Now Krishna takes off, right? And she is chasing him. And this is the original chase sequence. In movies we see all these chase sequences, whether it's Top Gun or James Bond or, Hindi movies or whatever. There's all this zoo, right? Everyone's chasing each other, the bad guys and the good guys and whatever. This is except there's no bad guys here, they're both good guys. But this is the original chase sequence. And Bhagavatam describes this, and the different scriptures, the Bhakti scriptures describe this, that Yashoda Mai had Krishna at a relatively later age. So she was not a young gopi, right? She was not old, but she was not a young gopi. Now, young girls can run faster, like you can run pretty fast, Saiti, right? Or Shriya. But maybe your mother, who's not old, but she's not as young as you are, right, might take a little while to run. And plus, Bhagavatam actually describes that as she was running, Mother Yashoda was a little heavier, right? So she was heavy set. So her hips and her breasts, they were heavy. So when she was running, and this is a 2-year-old boy who can run like the wind, right? And she's chasing him, and Krishna is described as someone that the speed of mind cannot catch. This is a gopi in Vrindavan. She's not a young gopi. How is she going to catch Krishna? Right? So Krishna runs for the gates. Now our Krishna is a very smart fellow. Right? So he runs for the courtyard and then the gate. Because he thinks, if I get out of Nanda Maharaj's house and I go into the village, and even if she catches me there, she'll be too embarrassed to chastise me in front of everyone else, right? So I'll escape punishment. If she catches me inside the house, I'm more likely to get some punishment, right? So he tries to go outside. And the chase sequence is described very nicely. Yashoda Mai, she's perspiring already from all her efforts. It's a hard day. Her flowers come loose, they get strewn to the floor. Her sari and blouse are coming loose, and she's panting. And this boy is running, right? And Krishna is looking around, and Krishna is also very smart. He looks around, sometimes he puts distance between him and his mother. And he looks at her, and she's far away, he relaxes. He's like, hey, how's it going, Subal? How's it going, Sridhama? And suddenly he realizes, oh my God, my mother's almost on my back. And then he starts running again, right? So it happens over some time. And she's laboring so heavily. Krishna always reciprocates with the labor of love of his devotees. He sees that his mother is laboring with affection, not with like malicious intent. Sure, the punishment may seem malicious, but it's not. It's designed to teach him, because Yashoda Mai does not regard Krishna as God. She actually has, sometimes she remembers and sometimes Krishna shows her glimpses of his godhood. But in Vrindavan, Krishna's godhood is kept outside of Vrindavan. Because in Vrindavan, Krishna is everyone's kana, right? He's everyone's favorite, whether a friend or a son or a nephew or lover, right? He is the most intimate personality for associating with in the minds of the Brajavasis. They know somewhere in the back of their minds that he's divine, but they don't have this conception of awe and reverence. And we sing in Damodar Ashtakam, right? The third verse of Damodar Ashtakam says, Iti Driksva Leela Vir, right? Ananda Kunde. That Krishna is demonstrating by these pastimes that the worship that is done in awe and reverence does not bind him to the devotee like these pastimes of intimacy do, right? So Krishna sees she's laboring with so much hard work, and he allows himself to be catched. No one can catch Krishna, but if Krishna wants to be caught, no one can avoid catching Krishna, right? So he allows himself to be caught. And then there is a dialogue that happens, which is very funny, between Mother and Divine Son. So she's got a stick in her hand, and she never hit Krishna before or after or during this Leela. The stick was just to show him, like little, put a little fear in him, right? Because he's so naughty, right? And you can't imagine how mischievous this little boy is, right? So she wants to discipline him. So she has a stick in her hand, and Krishna, he's described, second verse of Damodar Ashtakam says, Rudantam muhur netra yurmam rijantam, right? Rudantam muhur netra. His eyes are flooded with tears, and he's shaking. He's shaking because he's so afraid of his mother. And he goes, Mother, I'm so scared. Please put that stick down. And she goes, you're scared now? You were not scared when you broke that pot of butter, which I was churning in the morning for you? You were not scared when you jumped up on the ulukhala on the mortar and you broke all the pots and then started feeding that butter to the monkeys? You're scared now? And he goes, don't accuse me of false things. He tells her. And she goes, what do you mean false things? Krishna says, I never broke that pot. And she goes, I saw your butter footprints. You stepped in that butter. She said, he says, you broke that pot, mother. And she goes, I broke the pot? I went to see the milk and, take it off the stove. And he goes, no, you suddenly put me down and you were in such a hurry, you yourself don't know. You brushed by that pot and you're wearing these heavy anklets, and that anklet, one of the anklets broke that pot. And then the butter came out. And I wanted to escape from there because I thought you were going to punish me for something I have not done. And therefore I went, but the butter was leaking out, so I stepped in it. And then you saw my butter footmarks. I didn't do it. And Mother Yashoda is like, you behave like a monkey, you act like a monkey, you think like a monkey. You must have descended from a clan of monkeys. And you know what Krishna replies? If I come from a clan of monkeys, it's likely to have been on your side, mother, not Nanda Maharaj's side. This is the dialogue that's going on between Yashoda Mai and Krishna. And it's hilarious. And she goes, listen, this is enough back chat, right? I've had enough with you. I have so many things to do around the house for you. They're all designed for you, but you are so naughty. And I can't keep track of you and still do all the services I have to do. And Krishna goes, well, if I'm like a monkey, then maybe I should just go to the forest and live with the monkeys. This strikes fear into Mother Yashoda's heart, because she knows Krishna is very nutcut, which is very, very naughty, very mischievous. And you don't know what this restless boy is going to do. So she feels very afraid that Krishna is going to actually follow through and escape to the forest and start living in the forest. And how will he be protected? Here he is protected at home, right? He's a little boy. So she decides, I need to tie up this boy, right? And that's where this tying of Krishna happens. So she takes some rope. Now Krishna's 2-year-old boy, the waist is that much, right? It's not they're not, even if a fat boy, it's not, it's not that, right? It's a little waist. So she takes rope, longer than that, and she tries to tie Krishna. It's 2 fingers too short. She goes, oh, let me take a longer rope. She takes a longer rope, it's 2 fingers too short, right? She takes another, even longer rope, still 2 fingers too short. It's not that Krishna's waist was growing, but somehow that rope was 2 fingers, this much too short, right? And so now, remember, Krishna's run out into the village so that, everyone could see. So now all the gopis are watching this, and all the gopas are watching this, like his cowherd friends, male friends are watching, and they're all having fun. And they're saying, Krishna, the gopis are like, Yashoda, here, we'll bring you some rope from our house. So they start to bring ropes, right? And they tie the ropes to the original ropes, and then they try, soon the rope is 500 feet long, and it's still 2 fingers too short as they try to tie Krishna around the waist, right? Everyone joins in the fun. Now people are laughing. The gopis are laughing, they're giggling. They're saying, oh, this Krishna is so magical, but look at him, he's a little boy and you can't tie him. And Yashoda, what are you doing? Right? So everyone's making fun of Yashoda, and Yashoda Mata is laboring, right? She's perspiring again, that concept of seva from the devotee, right? And then the reciprocation by the Supreme Lord Krishna. So the 2 fingers Acharyas describe, 1 finger represents our endeavor. It's, yes, Krishna can liberate us and give us pure love and take us back to the spiritual world in one instance, but we have to do something for it. Not that by doing something we will go there. On our own endeavor, it's just that 1 finger. So the rope will still be 1 finger short, right? So we need to have both fingers. 1 finger is our endeavor, the other finger is Krishna's mercy, Krishna's grace. But the grace comes at his sweet will. Not that there's no formula that says, okay, if I do so many things or such and such, then I'll get the grace, right? Krishna sees the intention, not the action, right? And so finally, after the entire village has joined together and the rope has extended, probably all the way from Braj to Mathura, which is like miles and miles away, and Krishna is still not able to be tied, right? Krishna agrees because he's the Supreme Lord. Who can tie Krishna, right? Everything is within Krishna, and yet Krishna is outside of that. So if Krishna is all pervading, by definition you cannot tie him. To tie someone around the waist means their waist must have a limit, right? But in the previous chapter of Bhagavatam, 8th chapter, 10th canto, when Krishna is eating dirt and he is opening his mouth to show Yashoda Mai that I didn't eat dirt, Yashoda sees all the universes of all creation in his tummy. And so, someone who has every aspect of creation inside of him, how can you tie that with rope, no matter how long the rope is, right? So, but somehow, because of her pure love and Krishna's agreement in his heart that, okay, I'll get bound, she binds him. And Yashoda ties Krishna to the ulukhala, or the same grinding mortar on which he was standing, right? She takes him there and says, listen, I need to tie you. And the reason is because she wants to do so many services to serve Krishna throughout the day, but she cannot afford to have him run out to the forest and be with the monkeys, right? So she ties him. And you can see all the gopis are there, Krishna is crying, his cowherd friends are in the background, right? And no one is able to, and then Yashoda Mai goes and starts doing her services, right? So, why does Krishna allow himself to be bound by Yashoda? This is a very important philosophical point we must understand. So, Bhagavatam 10.9.19, this verse says, O Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami speaking, this entire universe with its great exalted demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma and Lord Indra is under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Yet, the Supreme Lord has one transcendental attribute. He comes under the control of his devotees. This was now exhibited by Krishna in this pastime. And Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport. I'm going to read a few lines. These next few lines talk about the greatness of Krishna as God. Right? By his one plenary portion, by a tiny portion of Krishna, as Paramatma, the super soul in the heart and in every atom, the Lord controls innumerable universes with all their demigods, and yet he agrees to be controlled by a devotee. In the Upanishads, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can run with more speed than the mind. But here we see that although Krishna wanted to avoid being arrested by his mother, he was finally defeated, and Mother Yashoda captured him. In the Vaikunthas, Krishna is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune or Lakshmis. And nonetheless, he steals butter like one who is poverty stricken. Right? Who steals? Normally people who are poverty stricken. Right? He's served by millions of Lakshmis, and yet he's stealing butter. Yamaraj, the controller of all living entities, who awards non-devotees punishments in accordance with their karma, right? Fears the order. Yamaraj fears the order of Krishna, and yet Krishna is afraid of his mother, right? All these contradictions are not understandable unless one is a devotee. One who is a devotee can understand how powerful is unalloyed bhakti or devotional service to Krishna. It is so powerful that Krishna can be controlled by an unalloyed devotee, right? And this is again from the same purport. This Bhritya Vashyata, meaning dependence on his devotee, Bhritya means devotee, Vashyata is dependence, does not mean he's under the control of the servant. Rather, he's under the control of the servant's pure love, right? Krishna is always fully independent. When he becomes subordinate to his devotees, this is a display of the humor of transcendental qualities that increases Krishna's transcendental pleasure. Everyone worships Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he sometimes desires to be controlled by someone else. It's very varying. Different scriptures describe how Krishna can listen to millions of yogis and devotees worshipping him with like, oh, you're God, you're the super controller and everything. He says, yes, and of course he reciprocates as they worship him. but he's not captured by them the way he's captured by someone who is a pure devotee like Mother Yashoda. And she captures him not for her selfish reasons. Aha, see, I caught God. It's not for that reason. She's doing it because she wants to teach him. She's the mother. She doesn't regard Krishna as God. She regards Krishna as her little child that has to be protected and that has to be served. So she's controlling him with pure love. And under such devotee's love, he agrees to come under their control. Right? And such a controller of Krishna can be no one but a pure devotee. And then we've heard the story, and I'll speed up. Krishna liberates the sons of Kuvera who are imprisoned in the bodies of trees. Right? He drags the mortar, and you can see the mortar stuck between the trees. And these twin sons of Kuvera, they come out and they're offering prayers to Krishna. And the boys see all this and they narrate this to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda and to all the coward men and women. And they can scarcely believe that our Krishna, like these divine beings, they're offering prayers to our Krishna. What's going on? Right? So, he liberates the sons of Kuvera, but Krishna himself is bound. It is not till Nanda Maharaj, his father, comes there that he's able to get free. Because Nanda Maharaj, remember I said at the beginning that Nanda Maharaj is on the same level as Yashoda in terms of his love, parental love for Krishna, or almost in the same. There's like a hairline difference because Mother Yashoda is acknowledged as the most supreme parent. Because the knots that tied Krishna were tied by a devotee like Mother Yashoda, even Balaram, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, right? He's an expansion of Krishna's. He could not untie Krishna. His coward friends could not untie Krishna. These twin boys, the twin sons of Kuvera, could not untie Krishna. Only Nanda Maharaj could untie. So it's ironic that Krishna liberated the twin sons of Kuvera, but he himself could not liberate himself because he is so controlled. And it says here, Krishna himself says, Mother tightly bound me with a strong rope of maternal love. Although I can release all living entities from the bonds of birth and death, still I have no power to untie my mother's ropes. Right? If I have no power, what can be said of the power of others to untie these ropes? So, I want to get to this last point, that Krishna is this is Prabhupada's purport to another 10th canto chapter, 6.18. Krishna is the real personality of Godhead because whether as a child or as a grown-up young man, he is the same person. He does not need to become powerful by meditation or any other external endeavor. Right? And Krishna says in Gita, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. So yes, we hear all these beautiful stories, and these stories have a very powerful effect because hearing the pastimes of Krishna clears the contamination in our heart and it makes us attached to Krishna. And Bhagavatam, again, obviously we are out of time, but Bhagavatam says that simply by hearing of these activities, one's attachment for hearing about material things, which is the root cause of material existence, vanishes, and one gradually develops bhakti, attachment to Krishna, and friendship with devotees who give us the contribution of Krishna consciousness. So, hearing these pastimes, these are not ordinary pastimes, they have a really deep effect on our heart. And in the month of Kartik, which is where we are, we should read every day, even if it's a little, 5 minutes a day. Offer lamp every day, Damodarashtakam, right? Offer our food, try to eat only prasad as far as possible, unless we are traveling and there's no way.